Can you drink alcohol and get in great shape? That is the question that we want to know. I have direct experience with this as someone that used to go out binge drinking every single weekend. And in this video, I'm going to tell you the actual truth, not what influencers try and sell you, and exactly what you need to know. The first thing that we really need to be aware of when we're looking at alcohol and we've got a fat loss goal is that drinking comes with a lot of additional calories. And what you'll see on the screen here is I went on to ChatGPT and asked for some of the most common drinks on a night out. So these aren't ones that I just pulled out to try and make it look like I was trying to find the highest calorie ones to throw you off. And the number that you will see above each box is how many calories you would consume if you were to have 5 of these drinks on a night out. So for me, I feel like looking at how much I used to consume, actually quite often maybe I would have more than 5, but 5 felt like a reasonable number to use for this example. And you'll see that in a lot of these numbers that we're actually going close to or over 1,000 calories. So particularly with things like the cocktails, with things like the beers, the ciders, which are very sugary, they've got a lot of carbohydrates in that are going to bump up that calorie intake. That's going to have a significant impact on your consumption across the course of the week. So if you've been working Monday to Friday to create that deficit, to try and see the number on the scale come down, to see those physical changes, and then over the weekend, you're increasing your intake by 1,000, 1,500 calories, depending on what drinks specifically, that's important that you're consuming, but also how many you're having, then we can expect realistically that that is going to have a significant impact on our total calorie consumption for the week. And when we've got a goal of fat loss, there's a very real possibility that that is going to slow things down. So being aware of the fact that drinking alcohol, it is just effectively empty calories. There is no benefit from that, but our drink choices and how much alcohol we're consuming will in reality have a direct impact on our overall consumption and then potentially slow things down on the scales and impact our fat loss results. And that's something that I experienced personally. I used to eat well Monday to Friday, I was going to the gym, but my excessive drinking on the weekends, the calorie consumption that I was actually having just by drinking so much, it put me in a state for years where I was just stuck in this cycle of never actually being able to make progress. And it wasn't until I actually started to look at alcohol more closely that I was able to then start to get things to the next level. So being aware of that intake is really, really important when we've got a goal of fat loss. Another thing we need to consider is how alcohol impacts our metabolism as well. So alcohol, without sounding overly dramatic, is pretty much, it's a poison. And when we've got that in our system, then your body's number one priority is going to be to metabolize that alcohol and get it out of you as quickly as possible. So whilst that is happening, anything else like metabolizing fat is just not going to be a priority to your body whatsoever. So the level of like inflammation, cortisol, all those things that can increase when you've got alcohol in your body is going to be significant, as your body is just trying to get rid of it as quickly as possible and not focus on anything else. So that is something that is going to have a real impact. But also it's things like increased hunger. And I'm not just talking about on the night, you know, certainly on the night when alcohol is impacting our thought process, but also the days after as well. I don't personally know anyone that has a hangover after like the following day and then they're really craving some broccoli and some peppers and some vegetables. That day after the hangover, you are craving crap food, and that's just the reality. I know that's the truth because I was there myself. I used to go out every single weekend. I'd feel really hungover, feel shit the next day, and the way that I would make myself feel better was ordering a takeaway, ordering a pizza, and those decisions, again, they significantly impact your calories that you're consuming across the course of the week as an average. And that's really what you're looking at, because if you've got a target of 2,000 calories, for example, and you consume that Monday to Friday, but on Saturday and Sunday, the combination of the additional calories from the alcohol and the additional calories from perhaps that cheesy chips that you got after on the night out, and then the next day you order yourself a pizza in the evening, you consume a total of an extra, you consume 4,000 calories on Saturday and Sunday. That's going to significantly impact your calorie average over the course of an entire week. And then again, when you've got that fat loss goal, we can really expect that that is going to have a big impact and either slow down progress altogether, or even actually get to a point where your body weight starts to go the other way and you're actually putting on fat. Another thing we know with alcohol is that it impacts your sleep quality, and this is something that is so bad. It's something we want to avoid when we've got a fat loss goal. When we don't sleep, our decision making regarding food is worse. We'll see that the hormones associated with hunger are more sort of prevalent. We're going to be feeling that more. Our cortisol levels are going to be higher. Our gym performance is not going to be as good as it could be, or anywhere near as it could be. And I think for me, this was one of the things that really got me to a point where I decided to stop drinking, was that if I went out on a Saturday and I drank on a Saturday, I didn't do anything on a Sunday, and I went back into the gym on a Monday, I would 100% notice the physical effects trying to exercise in the gym on that Monday. So even it wasn't just the day after, it was the days after. And that was something that I felt as I started to get older. Perhaps when I was maybe 20, 21, I could get away with that a little bit more. But for me, I was going into the gym, my session on Monday was awful, my session on Tuesday was a bit crap, and it wasn't really literally until 3 or 4 days after I've been drinking where I felt like I could perform at 100% again. And for me, that just didn't feel worth it, the amount that I felt like it was taking away from my progress from a physical standpoint. Because yes, obviously, whilst calorie consumption is important, if we've got a goal of seeing physical changes, pushing ourselves and training hard in the gym goes hand in hand with that. And if you're in a point where you're never able to do that because you always feel so shit because you drink on the weekends, then it takes 4 days to recover, and then you get a couple of good sessions, and then you drink, and then it takes 4 days to recover. You're in that cycle where you never actually train well, and you're never really recovering well, and you just can't see physical changes. So drinking frequently every weekend, like I was doing, 100%, that's going to have a massive impact on the quality of your results and just the amount of muscle mass that you're able to put on. And as you start to strip the fat away, if you've not got muscle, if you've got that goal of looking toned, then you need to have muscle to be toned, and that's not going to happen if you're just drinking every single weekend. So we know that it impacts the quality of our training sessions. It's also going to mean that the day after drinking, your activity levels are likely going to be a lot lower, where you're feeling unwell, your motivation is perhaps down in the dumps. And that was something that used to impact me a lot with alcohol, that I would feel particularly low. I would have like negative feelings from a mental health perspective after days of heavy drinking, and your motivation goes down in the dumps. You start to question if it's worth it. You lose 3 or 4 days of progress that you've made, and you, again, that cycle, I keep talking about that, but I know I talk about it because it's so important and I went through it. And if you're always losing motivation, you feel like you haven't got that consistency there, that's going to make it difficult to make meaningful progress long term. So that's certainly something that we need to be aware of if we're looking to incorporate alcohol into our fat loss goals. So how can you manage drinking when you've got a fat loss goal as well? I think for most people that I speak with, for a lot of my clients, the goal isn't to just become some social recluse, someone that never goes out to social events, never enjoys themselves, never is able to have a good time. So there are things that you can do to mitigate the impacts that alcohol has. The first thing that I would say is really, really important, and coming back to that example of the calories in certain drinks, is to make the best choices that you can when you're on a night out or when you're drinking, wherever it is, because like we've seen with things like the cocktails, the beers, ciders, the wines, they are particularly calorific drinks. So if you can look at, my recommendation would be a mixer, so something like a vodka and a gin, and then a zero sugar, like an alcohol, like a vodka or a gin, and then a mixer which is zero sugar, like a gin, not a gin, a Diet Coke. I'm going to get there in the end. A Diet Coke or slimline tonic, whatever it might be, and that's going to have quite a serious or quite a significant impact on the amount of calories that you could consume. So that could potentially reduce it as much as half or more. For example, if you're drinking a cocktail that's 250 calories, something like a vodka and a Diet Coke might only be somewhere between 100 to 125 calories. And when you times that across multiple drinks across the course of a day or a night out, that's going to have quite a big impact. Another thing that you can do, and this is a tactic that I quite like as something to do as a one-off, I certainly don't recommend this regularly, but if you've got an event that you're looking to incorporate, something that's particularly important to you, a wedding, birthday, family party, whatever it might be, is in the days prior to the event, I would look to reduce my calorie intake. This is something that I call banking. So Monday to Friday, assuming your goal is 2,000 calories, I'm going to drop calories on those 5 days by 200 to 1,800 calories. And what that's going to do is give me an extra 1,000 calories come Saturday that I can use for alcohol or additional food consumption without impacting that average that we talked about. Now, like I said, I use that sparingly because it's going to impact hunger and recovery and perhaps your ability to push yourself in the gym on those days, but it's a really, really good tactic to use if there's particular events that we want to go to that are important, and we also want to be able to stay on track with our progress as well. Another thing that I would be looking to do in the build up to an event is certainly increase my activity levels to perhaps try and make up for some of the additional calories I would be consuming. So perhaps I would look to increase my steps. So if you've been hitting an average of 10,000 steps per day across the course of a week, I might try and bump that week up to 12,500, or I might look to add in a couple of extra cardio sessions. And again, these things, they're not long-term tactics, but they're things that you can do that allow you to incorporate one-off events that are planned in the diary here and there. And I think that's probably the recurring theme that you're going to get here, is that if you are drinking regularly, that is just going to have such a negative impact on your ability to see results. And you will get these influencers that tell you, you can eat what you want, you can drink what you want, you don't have to exercise, you don't have to go to the gym, you can literally do absolutely nothing and see amazing results. But it's just bullshit. I've been through the experience. It's not the truth, and I'm not here to try and tell you lies to get you to work with me. I would rather just tell you how it is based on my own experience and get you to the point where you can see the changes that I was able to see as well, and that my clients have seen by giving you the real information. So it's going to have an impact, but if we're looking at one-off events, it's manageable. I'd be looking at planning my food for the next day as well, having things pre-prepared, knowing that you're probably not going to feel up for making meals, you're not going to feel up for, going out to the shop. So if you've got things made in advance, it's just going to make it a little bit easier for you. But overall, I think the biggest thing that's important when you go through this process, you're looking at how to incorporate alcohol and fat loss, is knowing when to say yes and when to say no. And what I say to my clients is, as you go through this process, you don't have to say no to everything all of the time, but you do have to say no some of the time. And that might come in the form of learning when to stop. So like you can see on this picture here, it might be the case of that you have a few drinks, you get to a point where you're at that good level, you feel a little bit tipsy, and you choose to stop there instead of getting to that point where you're completely wasted, you're completely written off for the next day. Or it might be that you say no to a particular event because it's something that's actually not that important to you, but then you say yes to another event, a wedding party, whatever it is, because that is something that you want to go to, but it's more manageable only having one weekend out rather than having 3 or 4, where realistically that's not going to be possible to incorporate with a fat loss goal as well. So at the end of the day, I think life is about balance. My goals through health and fitness are not to be someone that's 100% in all of the time. And I think actually the majority of other people feel the same way. And I think what you will find going through this process is once you've got to your goal, once you've achieved that physique, it's a lot easier to maintain it than it is in terms of the sacrifices that you need to make to get there. And I fully believe that in life there are times where we have to focus on getting our head down, doing the dirty work, doing what you need to do to make progress, and then times where you can take the foot off the pedal a little bit. And it's recognizing what period of your life that you're in right now. Are you in a state where you need to push a little bit more, or are you in that position where maybe you can relax a bit now, but get to that stage where you've hit your goal, and you will find it will be a lot easier for you to maintain the things that you can do. You don't have to be as strict, and you'll be in that position where you can enjoy yourself more. So stay safe. Hopefully this was helpful, and make sure you're subscribing for more content like this.